Hey, welcome back to JG3 Reviews. My name is James, and we explore the world here of fountain pens, ink, and paper. And every now and then, I'm going to stop and show you what is in that case that James has taken to the office every day. So, this is my EDC carry case, and it is packed full of pens, just absolutely busting at the seams at the moment. So I thought I'd share with you what is in here, and confession time. This is not even all the pens I'm actually writing with right now. This is just as high a number as I wanted to do in today's video. I don't know if I need to do a part 2 or just let it ride until the next time, but there's more pens floating around out there with ink getting used on a regular basis, but the number gets a little bit crazy every now and then. But anywho, these are the pens, this is the case, these are the inks I'm using right now. All right, first pen up is the Hongdian H3 in that matte black with the bamboo clip. This is kind of like the Muji pen if you're not familiar with it. Minimalist design, very simple. Instead of the knurling, it just has a grooved grip section, which does work quite well, and a nice black finish to that fine nib. And this is a pen that I just enjoy using. I hadn't put it in rotation in quite a while, and when I'd used up my Iroshizuku Yamaguri that was in my Visconti Mythos, I wanted to use a different pen, and this one immediately came to mind as a wonderful match. This is kind of a chestnut brown, almost a charcoal chestnut brown. Really, really nice ink, and it suits this pen quite well. This pen always surprises me with how well it writes and how easy a pen this is to live with. Just an excellent little pen and a great value. And you can see why I chose the ink. It is really well suited to fall and the colors that come with it. So it just seemed like a no-brainer to put this pen in rotation for the fall. Now, if you follow my Instagram, you already probably knew this pen was going to be in today's video. I always try to have a stub inked up. So last time I did a video, it was this Leonardo Momento Zero Grande with a 1.5 stub nib and Konpeki ink. Love that combination. Absolutely fantastic pen. But this month, it is the TWSBI 580 ALR in Prussian blue, and this one has Noodler's turquoise ink. It is a 1.1 millimeter stub, nice and wide on the downstroke, thin on the side strokes. And that is a nice turquoise ink, and it just performs perfectly in this TWSBI, and just a great combination that I always like to get back into rotation. You can find a full review of this pen here on the channel. Another favorite for me is the Pilot Prera. A lot of you love your Pilot Prera pen. I like it because it's a handy size. It's easy to find a shirt pocket for this pen. It's not too long. It's not too short. It's not really a pocket pen. It just hits kind of a sweet spot, and it has a terrific, fine Pilot nib, and it is of course a Japanese style fine, so it's a little bit closer to extra fine by Western standards, but it writes really well. Never a hiccup with this pen. Probably its only shortcoming is that Con 40 converter, but other than that, absolutely terrific pen. Ink in this one is diamine graphite. Nice gray ink. And I think that's just a really nice match. The slate gray here is a little bit bluer than the diamine graphite, which is really quite true to a true graphite color, and I really do like it. But it performs well in this pen, very reliable, no dry out that I've experienced so far, and just well-behaved ink in what is an excellent high-quality pen. Speaking of excellent pens, still in rotation is this Eureka Symmetry with a number 6 nib in medium. That is a Bach nib, two-toned. Really, really nice. If you're not familiar with this pen, you're going to want to check out that review. Feel like I need to apologize for my handwriting here. Hard working around this camera the way I have it set up. Boy, I made that true in the middle of that statement, didn't I? This is Waterman Mysterious Blue. Really great everyday ink, and one that I highly recommend. It's easy on pens, it's well behaved on paper, and I think it's a really nice kind of a blue-blackish, business-friendly blue. Now this next one is another Hongdian, and this is one that I don't think gets nearly as much attention as it should. This one comes with a number 5 extra fine nib, although I would say it leans in the way it writes more toward a Western fine. But this is just an excellent pen. The machining is done nicely. It's nice and light, just really well made, comfortable to write with, and mine has been very reliable. And I really like the way that they have made these grooves. I just think this is a great looking pen that fits almost any occasion. Ink in this pen is Pelican dark green. And this pen writes really well. It is very smooth for an extra fine. Now you can see why I'm saying this is much more of a Western fine. It almost looks as thick as that medium. It's really not quite that thick, but the flow is really good and the nib is really smooth, and I do like it even if it's not really quite as extra fine as you might think an extra fine ought to be. The grooves here on that grip section mean that it's a metal pen that does not slip. And it's excellent. I keep this one inked up and on my desk at my office almost all the time. Now, before we get into some other colors and bolder inks, let me just give you one more blue inked pen. This is my Schaeffer Icon, and this is a pen that I pull out on a pretty regular basis. If I don't have it inked over a long period of time, I start going, where is that icon? Because I like this pen. It's a heftier pen. It's kind of the opposite of that Hongdian A3, in that this is a weighty pen. It's a heavier, solid metal brass pen, and it's just a kind of a chunky one. But it is another one of those pens that fits into some shorter pockets. It doesn't look like it would, but it does, and so I find it a handy pen to carry in my shirt pocket, and I kind of like that green color, and I like its style. But I like the combo of this Mini Fude nib and this Schaeffer Icon. Again, that gives you a wider downstroke, some variation to the side, and as you do different angles as well, you get, well, that didn't write, but you get some different variation. And so it's just kind of a cool pen to write with and figure out, or it can just add variation to your normal handwriting. And this is a Noodler's Midnight Blue. And I've had this bottle for a long time. I'm working my way through it, and very reliable in my pens. I have really liked the way it has performed in every pen I've put it in. I don't have trouble with dry out. Some papers it bleeds through, but it's been a pretty good ink for me. All right, one thing I always have inked and ready to go is a click pen. There are times where a click fountain pen is just handy, and so whether it's a Mahjong A1 or 2, or my Pilot Vanishing Point, or this Platinum Curidas that I've had for a while, I always like to have one of them on standby because, I don't know if you've noticed, but I can talk. And so I want to be able to click and close that and not keep track of a cap and things like that. And so I find that handy. My Curidas has held up very well, no issues whatsoever. The only maintenance I need to do is every now and then I just do a full-on disassembly, cleaning, and light application where they tell you to of some silicone grease. And every time I do that, the pen is like new and ready to go. Ink today is a cartridge actually, and it's platinum black. Sometimes I keep a cartridge in this one just because I use it for note-taking where it's not always possible if you run out to refill with a bottle. And it's a nice basic black, and again, this pen performs really well. I'm telling you, my writing today is not great, but that's okay. Now you're probably wondering, how in the world has James got through a video this far and there hasn't been a PenBBS pen? What's going on? Well, let's fix that, but it's not the PenBBS pen you probably thought that I was going to bring in here. This is one of their $4.99 models with gold plating and this kind of a golden wave pattern. And I said when I reviewed this pen that this is not a style that I typically like, but that for some reason I kind of like this pen. And that is still true. You can notice I just inked it back up again a few minutes ago because I realized that I'd already run through the most recent converter fill. And I don't know, I just really do like the pen. Now, I don't carry it in my pocket very often because it's just blingier than I like to be. But in terms of the form factor and the way the pen writes and the feel in hand, I like this pen. Now, when I inked it up not that long ago, it was because I had a new PenBBS ink, and it's called Darkening of the Skies. This is a fine nib, but it is the fine that has just, see, that little bit of an upturn. So PenBBS fine is already kind of a dry, but leaning toward Western fine. But these, with that upturn right, even a little bit broader, and kind of a nice nib. I do like it. But you'll definitely notice that the line is not overly fine. The ink number, because they number their inks, is 374, and really a neat dark green, and it has some shading, some variation. It also seems to write quite differently depending on the pen that I've put it in. You can see it is not the same, but there's some similarity between that and the Pelican dark green. I would kind of compare the two, but you can kind of see that it's similar to that, and I really do like this number 374. Again, the name for that is Darkening of the Skies, but 374 is how you're going to want to look it up. I just find this a really nice pen. The way they did the engraving on that metal section completely gets rid of the problems with a metal section. It's like adding knurling, but a little bit more creative and less common, and it looks just really well done. All right, I couldn't stay away from a blue ink all that long, so here is my TWSBI Eco. I've had this one for quite a while, and I absolutely enjoy this pen. It's another one of those that if it's out of rotation too long, well, I have to fix that. I apologize. I had already written most of this line when I realized that my camera had just completely lost its ever-loving mind, and so focus just went out the window. Anyway, this is the TWSBI Eco with a medium nib and a surprisingly great blue ink. This Jinhao blue is just nice and bright. This is a bottled blue. Now, I will say, mine says Jinhao blue. Some vendors have it listed as sky blue, which I think might be truer to its color. So, I don't know which for sure. You would want to make sure that you got this blue, but I really like this ink. It writes nice and wet in this pen. And see there, and I like it. It reminds me a lot of Monteverde Caribbean Blue, but maybe even with just a little bit more of that electric blue energy. All right, next up is my other TWSBI Eco, the recently reviewed TWSBI Eco Special Edition with the bronze clip, trim rings, and nib. And I really like this pen. I love the way that nib looks and that plating, and it behaves very well together with this Ferris wheel press Stroke of Midnight shimmering ink. It has written every single time. There has been zero dry out, zero clogs. Very, very good combo between this and the Stroke of Midnight ink. I had no idea what to expect, and it has just been an excellent combo thus far. Now, it'll be hard to catch with my camera here in the lighting, but this ink has just kind of a light touch of the shimmering material to it. So it's not overwhelming or to the point of being silly, as I kind of think some inks are, but when you zoom in, you can see it. And by the way, this Pen Gear notebook made in India and sold at Walmart treats this ink quite well. But as you can see, really kind of a neat ink, and that pen has been a great place to use it. All right, now for something completely different, the Hongdian 100. The pen's been out for a while. I've had it for a while, but I haven't done a review yet. That'll come in the not-too-distant future, but let me first tell you why I didn't do a review right away. One, there was kind of a flood of reviews of this pen at the time, and sometimes I like to be fashionably late with that kind of thing and see what the pen does in the long term. And two, it was a matter of, I have actually accidentally two of these, and one of them came with a decent nib, but this one did not. The nib looked great, and it wasn't scratchy or anything like that, but it was dry as a bone, like dry to the point of ink-starved and just not that usable. So I decided to shelve it for a while until I had time to deal with it, and I just kind of kept putting it off. Well, the other day, I finally got this out and put it through the paces of what you do to help a a ink-starved nib in terms of using some lines and pressure to broaden those tines just a little bit. And that worked some. And then I decided, I think it's needing just a bit of something. So I got out my micro mesh and did that too. And now this pen writes fantastically well. So I will share what I did to make that happen in more detail when I do the review. But it's gone from a dud to a pen that I really like to use. And the ink that I have in it today is Diamine Red Dragon. This long blade nib gives you a thinner downstroke and a wider, as you can see, side to side, which gives you variation. You can also vary those things by raising and lowering your angle, and it's really made for Chinese characters, but a lot of us like the line variation it gives even Western handwriting. And as you can see, ink starvation no longer a problem at all, and I think that Diamine Red Dragon is really a pretty cool match to that Hongdian 100. All right, last pen in the case. Are there really that many pens in the case? Yes, there are. And this is that Jinhao Dadao 9019 with that gigantic converter and that wonderful number 8 nib. And this one is a medium, and I don't think it's possible to have gotten a better sample of their medium nib than the one that I got in this pen. This pen is ridiculously good, better than it has the right to be. Writes kind of like a broad. Ink is Monteverde Sapphire from their Gemstone collection. Ooh, isn't that funny? Look how wet that ink looks. There we are. And yet for a second there you might have thought it was dry. It's not though. This is a wonderful, vibrant blue from Monteverde. I do find that this one kind of does have some ghosting and bleed through more than most Monteverde inks, especially in this pen, which writes a little wet. But the trade-off is you get such a well-saturated blue, and it's really perfect in this 9019. All right, these are all the pens that were in my pen case and in my shirt pocket. There is one more, by the way, that should get an honorable mention, and that's that Birmingham Pen Company 6th Avenue with orange ink that I'm always going to use during October and November, but unfortunately, it's on my desk at the office where I was using it just a couple of days ago, and so it didn't make it into the video. But what do you have? What are you using? Do you use seasonal inks? If so, what are you writing with during this season wherever you are? Share that in the comments below. Be sure and subscribe if you haven't already, and God bless you. Have a great week.